On the volley, a couple of things that Gregg already mentioned, which are very, very important on the volley from a technical standpoint, is there is very little going on the upper body when you volley. Let that sink in for a second. So who here knows of a player at your club, or yourself may be that player, where there's a lot of arm action going on before and then after contact, but not on the same plane? What that means is you have a lot of opening racket faces with a big take back, and you have a lot of wrist action past the take back, or you have a high to low swing, right? What you want to do, if you're a very good volleyer, you will see very little activity on your hitting arm. So what I would like for you to do is, and I'm really German when it comes to this, all right? These elbows out here are probably the single best tip anybody can give you, because I kind of use the analogy of it's a sword fight. Do I want that sword anywhere near my face? I want to be out in front, because out in front meaning that the elbows are away from the body, slightly to the outside. Okay? Because that positions, as Gregg did so beautifully earlier, when you do your unit turn, which is subtle, okay, which basically means unit turn for the forehand here means I do what? My shoulders go from squaring off with the posts to basically embracing one post, net post, okay? That's plenty of a turn. So that still keeps my hands out and my elbows away. So my racket face does not do what in this posture? It does not open up. If I don't turn and I do this, my racket, that's the only, nobody's gonna go back like this, just with the arm and the racket face staying flat. So that's why it's so important that you utilize this subtle little turn with your shoulders. And what happens with your hands? My hands do what?
Move together.
They move together and they stay together, and they don't do anything separately from this little coil. Okay, so what I want to do is, again, Gregg did a fantastic job in the morning here with what to do with the racket face. If you can get the racket face, I always use the analogy of a lacrosse racket. You think you have a lacrosse net in your frame, and you let that ball sink in there. If I change the trajectory of my string face before contact, how likely am I that I'm going to catch that ball successfully? Right? So that's why this grip structure, this structure that we've been talking about the entire week, is so important, that you maintain a good solid wrist grip structure throughout contact. So not only on the ground strokes, especially so on the volleys. Do me a favor, guys, and grab your volley grip. And that's what everything starts with, is the grip. Now there are a couple of competing opinions on the correct grip. On the forehand, a lot of players use the continental grip, which is bevel 2. But there are some professional level players who actually use 2.5 as a grip, which is the edge between bevel 2 and 3. Why is that, guys? What does that little tiny bit of, and I think, Gregg, you play that way, right? Yeah. So Gregg has a 2.5 volley grip. What does that do? The grips are responsible for what in general? They determine how your racket face meets the ball, right? So if I go to 2.5, my racket face is likely to be more flat and less open, in a very good wrist position in terms of it being sturdy. Okay, now continental requires a little bit more finesse to maintain that wrist in that same position, but it's a more difficult way to do it. A lot of players still make this their primary. My forehand volley grip is a continental, but my forehand volley isn't as good as his. All right, so if you do feel like, okay, this is a little bit difficult with continental, 2.5 is a go. All right, and then for the backhand volley, it is a continental grip. You do not want to have a different grip than continental for backhand volley. Okay, so that's the first and foremost thing. Now here's the important part on any volley. After you have the correct grip, when you come out and do this little subtle turn, split subtle turn. Now the important part is what? I mentioned before what players do a lot, right? So I want to keep the racket on the same level as much as I possibly can before, during, and after contact. So you see it's a very, very nice plane. I'm not changing that plane purposely. Does that make sense? Go ahead and do a couple. Come a little bit and spread on that level where you are, and get your elbows out in front. Okay, do a split step unit turn. You see, when I did this, I haven't moved my feet yet in terms of stepping. I split, I turn. Check your elbow. Is my elbow in front of me diagonally, or is my elbow to the side of me? If the elbow is to the side of you, you've taken that racket too far back. Okay, so right here. Right there. That's it. Perfect. You see how the elbow is not to the side of you yet.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, let me see that. Split step and turn. Very nice. Right here. Excellent. Split step, turn. Okay, you can lay that right here. Just as. So I see some of you guys have the racket straight up and down. Is this a position where my wrist will stay firm throughout, or will this mean that my wrist will likely break? So I want the racket face to be what? Look at this position right here. What letter is this? It's a V. Christine, guys, what letter does my racket and my arm present? Or a V? Okay, and L is no good, and whatever this is no good. Okay, so we want to keep that V shape. Exactly. And now I want you to do this, guys. Watch. So split, turn. The weight is on that outside leg. And now I want you to start initiating the move towards contact and keep that same plane alive. Okay, keep that same plane alive. Now my arm does not straighten out by itself. That does not happen. The arm structure stays. So whatever arm structure you have here, slight bend. Very nice, Christine. Let me see Kathy. Yes. Let me see Karen. Good job. And you have a little bit of a, what I call a nudge. And you maintain the racket face the same level. Here we go. Turn. And now step. Pop. There we go. Okay. So you see, what is different? What is different on the backhand side, guys? What's different on the backhand side?
Not much.
Not much is the right idea. You want to keep it as simple. Now there's a little bit of a different approach to it because your non-dominant hand becomes a very important partner in crime here. On the forehand, you do want the left hand to come around with your dominant hand, sorry, your non-dominant with your dominant hand, but it's not on the grip. When you go for the backhand, you actually want to quote unquote rest the racket on that left hand in my case. Okay, and then what's different to the forehand is that when I make contact, I actually actively separate. I don't just keep the left arm there, because what happens if I keep my left arm there and I swing? I come across my body and I have this typical high to low swing, right? So it's all about stabilization, simplicity, and if I want to keep everything up top, so simple, what has to be active? The feet. And there's a very important concept that Gregg always points out in all the doubles cleans I've ever done with him is, a lot of players do the following. What happened first, the step or the hit? What happens when I step first? What am I more likely to do? Swing high to low. So if I do this, then I can maintain that integrity. If I step after I hit, that's why the weight shifts to the outside. I align my string set up with the incoming ball. I connect and land. I never land and then connect if I can help it. For the integrity of the swing plane, because you want to have a nice long swing zone, and that will be interrupted if I step first and then I'm coming high to low.
You do it at the same time though?
You want to initiate at the same time, but if you look at it really closely, you will see that the contact happens slightly before you land. Okay, that's very, 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 very important. And a lot of players will probably see you do the opposite without you even knowing that you're doing that. So it's about integrity of keeping the same look to you when you play. So can I have Harry just really quickly volley with me for just a moment? And guys, don't look at the ball rally, look at my posture. Okay, after contact. Do you see like there's after contact, I'm holding my posture. Okay, he's really making it hard on me. But I'm trying to maintain, there is no need for me to rush out of this. You see, hold, 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 hold. Why? It's all about integrity of the position. If I do this right here, if I get out of the position too early, I'm gonna mess up. I wanna maintain my swing zone, which is very short, but I want to maintain it as long as I can. That gives me immediate feedback of what I'm doing.
Grip tension.
Grip tension. What do you think the grip tension is?
People used to say squeeze the racket at impact, but I haven't heard that.
I have never actually.
I say that, yeah.
No, there's
Can't squeeze around.
naturally, but not if you try to do it intentionally, you're gonna freeze up. You're gonna make contact, you're gonna have a little bit of a squeeze, but that happens. I can't tell you whether I do this or not at all. But the important part is that if your wrist structure, wrist positioning is proper, you will do it naturally in that sense. But if your wrist structure is bad, then you're gonna really squeeze. Like grip down on the racket, you don't wanna do that. So it's, I would say on a scale, somewhere between a 4 and then maybe 5 at impact. But not much higher than that. Any questions about the volleys? So what part moves more, the legs or the arms? So in order, I'm out of breath from these couple because it's my legs doing all the talking. My upper body looked relatively calm, right? That's what you want to shoot for. Okay, does it make sense? Yes?
It's like you're doing a little twist at the end.
Well, it looks like it's this, it's not. What happens is I'm maintaining my posture, so there's impact of the ball, right? Remember the spring effect? That's the spring effect you see. That's not me wristing it.
Okay.
There's a big difference between that. You want to maintain that as much as you can.
Okay.
You see this right here? This is the volley. Okay, it's not this. All right, do you have one more question?
I saw the ball being too high for you. Then
Yeah.
you just,
Okay, very good question. Last thing, because otherwise I'll monopolize this clinic. We want to make sure that regardless of the height of the ball, if I can help it, I want to keep my head to this approximately on a very close level to the head of the racket. That separation should never happen like that. Do you see? So if the ball is high, in order to control it, and the distance is a little bit bigger than ideal, then I want to make sure I stay high to high. That is my favorite go-to. When I teach is I say swing high to high. Keep the integrity of that swing path the same.
the pancake.
Well,
I do the pancake.
there is no such thing really if you do it properly. Well, if you're here and you want to be funny, you can do it because you're so close to the net. But from a technical standpoint, you never want to do that. You want to maintain that same high to high regardless of the actual height or low level of that ball. Okay? And the proximity between your racket and your body never really gets bigger either, because this is a reach. What can I do with that? Right? Okay, now I know I said it's the last thing, but I did miss a very important concept, which is how do you step to the ball? Very basic, because we could talk about this forever, but the idea is that when you load the split step and you load the outside leg, do you want to go laterally or do you want to go diagonally?
Diagonal.
Why?
Well, you're getting
less
forward
of the
momentum.
distance.
You get forward momentum, you're cutting off the angle of the ball. Because if I go this way, the ball has traveled further and it's further away from me, I can't do anything. I want to always try to go at an angle towards contact.